From Mountain Home to Raft River, we've got all the District 4 analysis you'll need to know. This is the Magic Valley Prepcast with Scott Burton.
That's right. It's time for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. I'm Brandon Baney. Let's bring in live now Scott Burton. Scott, what's going on?
Yo, it is the season. Let's go Dodgers.
That's right. If
you're talking high school sports, but
well, yeah, you're pretty fired up. If you're watching the video on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, you see the big Dodgers banner with a couple of helpers holding up that banner behind you. You're rocking the Dodgers hat and the Dodgers jersey as well. It's quite the setup you've got there, Scott.
Oh, yes, it is. It is I got the flag flying out front, and I'm ready to rock and roll, man. So if we lose, I pretty much talk enough crap during the week about my teams that when we lose, there's a long line of people wanting me to hear how they feel.
Absolutely. Now, you got your kids holding up that banner. You're not going to make them do that the whole time, are you?
Well, I don't know. We're going to see how long they can last. Girls, you going to do this the whole time?
Nope.
I think they're out of here.
They're out. All right.
Okay, you're out. Peace out.
Bye. That's a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to see all that, I highly recommend you check out the video part of the podcast. And again, that's on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page. Of course, you can get the audio only as well at our website, IdahoSports.com, along with wherever you download your podcast. So yeah, Scott, you're rocking the Dodgers gear. We're recording this on Wednesday evening, just ahead of the Dodgers one game wild card playoff against the St. Louis Cardinals. It would be really a bummer to win like 105 games and then lose one game.
And that's what you get when you've got the Giants in your division who are having just a phenomenal year. And then the way that the thing is set up, the second best team in the majors just loses one game, they're done. So it's a tough position to be in. But we got Scherzer going.
Yes. Scherzer and Wainwright, a couple of old dogs. That's going to be a good pitching matchup for sure. So we'll get you out of here in plenty of time to get ready for the game tonight. I guess Major League Baseball could probably use the Max Preps rating system to seed these teams in the playoffs. So you don't have right? Might be a better way to do it.
Now that you brought it up, it definitely would. We sure as heck would be playing tonight in a one-game elimination.
Absolutely. So, of course, the Max Preps ratings will play a big component in all of the Idaho football postseason stuff that's coming up. We still got a lot to sort out here in the regular season, Scott. And before we get to football, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Twin Falls girls soccer team because they kind of very quietly, we've talked about Wood River a lot in Canyon Ridge and Jerome and soccer, but Twin Falls is very quietly just went about its business. They played Preston last Saturday in a rematch of the 4A title game from a year ago, and they shut them out 3-0. It was very impressive.
Yeah, this is a very, very strong soccer program here. These kids have been playing together since they've been 10 years old. And, this senior group, their overall record together is 68-6-2. Think about those numbers. In this year alone, they have scored over 100 goals this season and have only allowed 11. This is an incredible soccer team with so many athletes and so many good players. And in fact, Katie Kaufman, their head coach, one of my students back in the day when I first started teaching. So, Twin Falls girls soccer is legit. They're good.
Yeah, and they're going to be gearing up for districts really soon. And again, they're in sort of a dogfight. There's going to be 3 or 4 teams, I think, that all could potentially be in the mix in terms of that district tournament. And on the boys' side, too, it's going to be a lot of good soccer coming up real soon in the postseason.
Yeah, it all starts today. As a matter of fact, the soccer district tournaments get underway today. And on the girls' side, it is Twin Falls tournament to lose on the girls' side. On the boys' side, it's a little bit closer, even though you've got the number 1 ranked team in 4A, the Jerome Tigers. But criminy, all they can do lately is just tie people. Something's going to give in one of their games at one point. They've played, and Minico and Wood River play in the first round tonight, and Jerome will await the winner of that game. And if it is Wood River and Wood River plays Jerome for the third time, both times that they played have been scoreless ties. So it's like first goal wins. I mean, how's this going to work? Because neither one of these teams know how to play a goal. But, we get to the golden goal at some point when we get into the tournament, and it'll kind of eliminate this mess.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you knew the specifics on that. Obviously, there's no ties once we reach the postseason, but
yeah. So golden goal, which is kind of sudden death, and then penalty kicks after that. So hopefully, I see a Jerome game in the tournament coming down to the extra time. I just see it. They tied Wood River twice. They've tied Canyon Ridge twice. They haven't lost on the year, but they've got a lot of ties, which means they're playing some pretty good defense.
Absolutely. Penalty kicks are exciting for the fans. Coaches despise them. So
it is. It's like you may as well have overtime in basketball, just a free throw contest,
Yeah, pretty much. So, all right, well, let's shift gears to football. There was a lot of good action from this past week. We always kind of start with the 4A Great Basin Conference and work our way down, and we'll do that again. The big matchup was Jerome at Mountain Home. These are two teams that we think are probably fighting for third place. Minico and Twin Falls appear to be the lead dogs. Tight game. Mountain Home wins by 14-13.
Yeah, this was a costly game for Jerome in a couple of different ways. They not only lose the game and probably are going to miss out on the playoffs because they needed this game. They're going to need a little bit of help now. But they're already thin the way it is with numbers, and they've got two of their big studs in concussion protocol right now. So who knows what's going to happen against Minico this Friday, but Jerome Tigers are going to be a little depleted after this game with Mountain Home. And, this was a game that Mountain Home was down in numbers too. I mean, they were missing dudes. And talking to head coach Clark up in Mountain Home, this has been, in his words, the most challenging season in his 25 plus years of coaching, due to injuries and COVID. And, they had 5 ACL injuries on this team and 2 broken feet, 2 different people with broken feet, and then you factor in the COVID protocols, which are pretty strict up in Mountain Home because every district's different on how they do things. But Mountain Home is one of those very lock it down type of districts. And holy cow, Mountain Home has just been trying to get these players onto the field. And so when they played Jerome, they were down a little bit too, and they jumped out to a 14-0 lead before Jerome just kind of muscled it up in the fourth quarter, which is good news for Jerome because the fourth quarter has not been the friend of the Tigers this season, just because they just don't have the energy of the kids or the gas to play that long. But they were able to bounce back, and then they, cut it to 14-13. And instead of going for the extra point, they tried to go for 2, and they came up just a little bit short. So, and it was on a play that they, had been working on, and it was just inches short of the goal line. And there's your final, 14-13.
It's been weird this year, Scott, across the state. There's been a lot of games where coaches have decided to go for 2 in the win, and it's not been very successful. I know Blackfoot, for example, has lost twice this year by doing that, going for 2 and not getting it. Generally speaking, those numbers should be about average, but this year, for whatever reason, the numbers are way down on that. So,
well, and you got to factor in kind of the situation. You're on the road, and you play for the tie at home, and you go for the win on the road. And when you're depleted like some of these teams are, hey, roll the dice, see what happens. And, you can't fault Jerome's decision on trying to go for 2, try to win this thing, especially if they had a play dialed up that they felt was going to work. But by this time, they've had kids hurt already. They're already just scrambling for bodies. And so kind of, I'm sure that was their thought at the time, was to go for 2 and let's end this thing.
Yep. So it's kind of been established now. There's a clear top 3 in the conference. Minico had a nice win over Canyon Ridge, 43-12, and Twin Falls continues to play well. So Minico and Twin Falls both still 3-0 in the conference. Mountain Home in third at 3-1 in the league. They're 3-3 overall. So this year, the Great Basin Conference gets 3 automatic bids to state, and there's the possibility of maybe like Burley possibly getting an at-large bid. There's a couple of at-large bids they hand out as well, but. For Mountain Home, barring some sort of monumental stumble here against Canyon Ridge, because they finish up with Canyon Ridge, Twin Falls, and Sugar Salem, which is going to be interesting. barring some sort of stumble against Canyon Ridge this Friday night, I think the Tigers, you can pencil them in.
Yeah, I mean, this was such a huge win for Mountain Home. Just they've already played Burley, and Burley's the only other threat. And with that gone, and all they've got to do is just take care of business. And this was the game that Mountain Home really needed. What happens with Minico up there? What happens with Twin Falls up there? They're 1-2. It doesn't matter. Mountain Home's playing for third, and this game really helped solidify that.
And I guess, really and truly, they still do have Twin Falls on the schedule. If they got a win there, now you're talking about maybe even second place, which is exciting. Twin Falls looks so good, though. They shut out Wood River 41-0, so they continue to dominate. Minico continues to dominate as well in the Great Basin Conference.
Yeah. It's Burley and everybody else right now.
Right. And Burley had a non-conference game with Pocatello, kind of an eye-opener, I think, as they fell 48-13. But it's a Burley team that's got a lot of spunk still, 3-3, and they, with a win or two, could play themselves into a playoff position possibly.
Yeah, and that game's only going to make Burley better because those are the kinds of competition that Burley needs to see if they want to play a team like Twin and Minico, because Twin fell to Pocatello. Up in Pocatello in a game that Twin probably should have won, but they just could not hold on to the football. Turned it over, I think, 4 times up there and lost 21-14, I believe was the score. But, Twin, and at that time, Pocatello, I think, was the number 1 team in 4A at that time. And so Twin can play with them. And then, so if you kind of connect the dots and you have that measuring stick, Burley's like, holy crap, we just got smoked and we got to play Twin and we got to, so you kind of play that little measuring game. But that game is only going to help Burley, so they can make a little bit of noise here and there. But, right now, I think with that win that Mountain Home had, Minico, Twin, Mountain Home, and then Burley's going to have to pull an upset somewhere.
Yeah, well, a good place to start would be at Twin Falls Friday night. The other games are Minico at Jerome, and then we also have Mountain Home at Canyon Ridge. So kind of those top 3 against teams that are maybe in the bottom of the conference. Wood River has a non-conference game. They will host Kimberly. Speaking of Kimberly, so we talked about in the 3A SCIC that, maybe the league wasn't, we came into the season thinking, well, Gooding and Kimberly in some form or fashion, the top 2 teams, then a pretty big gap, then Buell and Filer. And the way Buell and Filer have been playing, we thought, well, maybe the gap's closed a little bit, but I think it was proven with the 2 results. Gooding defeated Buell 38-12, and then Kimberly ran past Filer 48-6. I think the Kimberly game surprised me the most.
It did. And I talked to Coach, Rich Bishop over the course of the week, and he thinks that was the most complete game that they played on both sides of the ball. The defense held Filer to 153 yards of offense, with about 75 of those yards coming on the last drive in the fourth quarter when they scored their only touchdown. And so when you say those kinds of things about the Kimberly defense this year, you don't hear them quite a bit. For the first 5 weeks, we've talked about how Kimberly just needs to get stops defensively because they can put up points, but they can't just run in to every week trying to outscore everybody. They're going to have to find something on the other side of the football. And they've gotten it the last couple of weeks, and at least if nothing else, it's given them some momentum and confidence on the defensive side of the ball. And a little side note with Kimberly defense, sophomore Michael Goff had 15 tackles in that game, and he's sitting 3rd overall in the state in tackles, according to Max Prep. So, it's not that they don't have a couple of players there; they just have not put it together. And if this is indicative of what maybe Kimberly will do down the stretch, then they might be a little bit better off than we originally thought.
Yeah, could be peaking at just the right time. Gooding, meanwhile, no surprises, 38-12. They're 5-0. They've been pretty consistently ranked 3rd in the coaches and media polls, and just another good, solid effort from Coach Anderson and the Senators.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to get back to that Kimberly game in just one second, but let me tackle Gooding here. Gooding obviously moving to 5-0 with a convincing win over Buell, but this was a kind of a letdown game for Gooding. They're coming off of that big win with Declo. They sort of thought this might be a game where, they had a letdown, and they did, to their standards. They still won big, held Buell to 9 yards rushing. Meanwhile, Gooding did 399 yards rushing. And fun fact, when they told the team that the offensive linemen were ticked. They were not happy because they thought, we can't get 400 yards. We can't get one more yard, and that just kind of gives you that toughness mentality that Gooding has this year. But Gooding, they didn't play all that well. They had 3 turnovers, and those 3 turnovers gave Buell goal-to-go situations, all 3 of them. And Buell never scored on any of those possessions, or who knows, it could have been a different deal. I mean, Gooding was up 7-6 after a Buell fake punt. Buell got the ball back, had a chance to take the lead, but Gooding did they stole a possession. It's one of those things that I know coaches talk about, and I know some fans see, but when you're kind of a sports guy and you see this stuff, if you're getting the second half kickoff and you've got the last possession of the first half, you steal a possession. And Gooding did that. They scored right before the half, I think with 1 second left to go up 22-6. And then they got the ball in the second half, marched right down the field. Next thing you know, it's 28-6, and this thing was over. So just a couple of minutes ago, it was like, 14-6. And then boom, boom, it's over. And that's what stealing a possession will do for you at the end of the half and the beginning of the second half. And they did that. So some fun, interesting stuff about Gooding. And we talked a lot about, Colston Loveland and kind of his success and being recruited. He hasn't officially signed. He's committed to Michigan. We know this, and so because he hasn't officially signed a letter, he's still being recruited. These coaches are not giving up on him. For example, at the Canyon Ridge game that they played, Boise State head coach Andy Avalos and their tight end coach Kent Riddle, they were there on the sideline. Against the Buell game, Arizona's head coach was there. For the Filer game, guess who's showing up? It's going to be Auburn is showing up. And then when they play Marsh Valley up in the Dome, the Arbaugh brothers are coming. And so here comes this whirlwind of recruitment. And I had a really good conversation with Coach Anderson about it because, what I think the general public doesn't understand is for a team like Michigan or all these other teams to come after Loveland, that is expensive because you're talking about a very expensive school with out-of-state tuition, and essentially it's just ballooning the scholarship price when they could go a little bit in-house or a little bit in-state rather, and kind of make their scholarship money last longer. But it's also one of those things to where anything you say as a head coach, any word you say, these coaches from these big time schools are hanging on every word, and they're looking for a reason to either like this kid or let this kid go, because they're just not used to this atmosphere, this small town stuff. And, one of the funny things was that Coach Anderson was talking about, other coaches that were watching film and he got a call from, the name escapes me, but he was sitting there with Coach Saban. Oh. And he goes, Coach Saban and I were just watching Gooding game film. And just to hear those words, it just kind of just rattles your brain. And the first thing Anderson said to me was, man, I hope I called a good play. Something to that effect. But it's just it's a different world when you do this. And, and I'm going to have him come on in a couple of weeks as a guest here to sort of explain the ride that it's been having this kind of recruit and having this kind of attention. It's just been unreal.
Yeah. What does that do for the other guys that are on Gooding's team and also the teams they're playing? I mean, not all these guys are going to go sign with Michigan or Alabama necessarily, but these are high powered coaches that know a lot of people that could easily say, hey, there's a kid from Filer that you should look at. What does it do for all the opponents and the people that are involved in this Colston Loveland circle here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does good things for recruiting small town kids, but at the same time, it also, for those people that don't have a grasp of reality, it presents this false narrative that, well, my kid's good. My kid knocked Colston Loveland down one time. Why is he not getting a D1 offer? I mean, so it's really a two-sided coin here. It's great for exposure. but you've got to keep it real. We can get this false sense of reality sometimes that every kid in this area is deserving of this attention when, we know better than that. They're not. It's just the way it is. But it's been cool. I mean, the weird thing I would like to ask when we have Coach Anderson on is like, how's it been for a distraction? Because you've got a team that is potentially vying for a state title. And the last thing that you need as a coach or any type of distractions or one person getting all of the attention. And that that's what's happening. How are they keeping that together? I think that's the interesting thing when it comes to their season.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I can't wait for that conversation. It's going to be really exciting. Okay, so you said one more note on Kimberly you wanted to get to.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple things about Kimberly and their offensive video game type of thing, because again, it was Heath Owens, 4 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. Gatlin Bear extended the streak, 9 catches, 149 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then another TD on a punt return. Video game numbers continue. But they're going to be without Widmeyer for a little bit because he took a hit and is in concussion protocol. So, Kimberly suffered a blow there. But they have an update a little bit on the Holman Chadwick story. We talked about him last week, the young kid that's kind of going through cancer battles. Well, he had about 6 or 7 surgeries in the last 10 days. That's kind of what he's going through. It's still touch and go with him. But a cool note is on the last game against Filer that Kimberly had, the coaching staff got on the bus and they asked the boys, what's 48 minus 6? And everybody, did a little bit of math. They go 42. And they said, that's right, because that's Holman's favorite number. And we just won by 42 for Holman tonight. And so they sent me a couple of pictures, and that's Holman right there.
Okay.
There's the kid wearing his Kimberly jersey. And then when he was the honorary captain.
Yep.
I mean, you can just see, and I believe that's Widmeyer there behind the chair, and you can just see the emotion, on their face. And so what's going on over there is pretty cool. And so I just wanted to make sure, I got that update in because that's important to that community.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep everyone in our thoughts and prayers, certainly. And tough kid. He's a fighter.
Absolutely. Can't even imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this week, Kimberly so everyone now in a nice tidy 4-team league, right? You just kind of get into conference play. Although Kimberly does have the non-conference game with Wood River, we will see Filer take on Gooding. So that'll be another good test for the Senators, a good opportunity to bounce back. At the 2A level, it was a mixed bag. Wendell went out and competed, fell to 3A American Falls 41-14. Declo got a win 2-0 via a forfeit by Valley High School. We heard last week that Valley is actually going to move down to the 1A D1 level starting next year. And so it's just one of the smallest 2A programs. It's tough to hear about what they're going through. And it's always tough when you see a team forfeit like that. But
yeah, it is what it is. And those smaller schools, it doesn't take much to knock you down a level. And Valley has just really struggled this year. So, I mean, it's probably a good move for them.
Yep, for sure. At the 1A D1 level, Raft River continues to impress. So, boy, Lighthouse Christian put up 52 points, and a lot of times that would be enough to win, but they gave up 74 to I'm looking at let me make sure I got the right game here. We're not talking about Lighthouse yet. Okay, so Raft River sorry, I jumped ahead of myself on the rundown. Okay, Raft River beats Glens Ferry 48-6, 5-0, continuing to play well.
Yeah, Raft River is just rolling. I mean, it's like every week we are just waiting for that Raft River Oakley game. 1 versus 2, and I mean, it's just, what do you say? I mean, there's only so much you can say about a 48-6 win. It's just vanilla for Raft River, and they're just trying to stay healthy and get to that Oakley game.
Yep. I did get some stats from Coach Evans. Offensively, Tate Whitaker, 6 of 8 passing, 117 yards, 4 touchdowns. Alex Murillo had 84 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Seth Tracy, 64 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. Tegan Whitaker, how about this? 91 yards on special teams in return yardage. That's pretty good.
How about that? Not too shabby.
Yeah, and that's on a couple of different returns. Defensively, Thane Lockmiller, 9 tackles, 1 sack. Seth Tracy and Alex Murillo each had 5 tackles as well. So, I mean, it's all kind of lining up for that showdown with Oakley at the end of the season.
Yeah, and the thing is, Raft River is going to have that bye the week before the Oakley game. So they're going to have 2 weeks to get healthy and prepare. So it would be interesting to see what they do in that bye week.
And we talked about coming into the season that this could be a multiple bid league, right? 3 of the 4 semifinalists last year came from this conference, but I'm just not sure I see it anymore because Oakley and Raft River are so dominant. We talk about Lighthouse Christian. They're 0-5 now. They scored 52 points. A lot of times that would be enough to win, but they give up 74 to Murtaugh. Maybe Murtaugh 4-2. Maybe they're the 3rd playoff team from that league, but there's a clear separation.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. I think everybody below those 2 teams are just kind of jockeying for position. But there are some, decent football teams down there. Like you said, Murtaugh, I mean, can't, turn your back on them. But when you try to measure up to Raft River and Oakley, you just can't, period.
And meanwhile, at the 1A D2 level, finally, Carey, Castleford, both continuing to play well. Carey shuts out Hanson 72-22. Castleford shuts out Camas County 38-0. Let's start with Carey. 70 points is slowly becoming the norm for Carey, I feel like.
It is, and the thing about Carey is they ran 31 plays that game, scored 9 touchdowns. I mean, that's unheard of. 31 plays to score 72 points. That means that you're scoring at a pretty good clip, but Carey's got an interesting, it's not a problem. It's a good problem to have, is that they're so deep and they're so loaded that their guys, if they had like egomaniacs on that team, they'd be in a whole lot of trouble because nobody's getting enough touches because they're that loaded. Connor Simpson and Colton Larna, they're 2 running backs. They're splitting carries. I mean, and then plus you've got so many other weapons on that team that if they were to get the touches, and this is how good Carey is, if they were to get the touches that, the North Gem running back Hatch gets, because he just gets fed all the time. I mean, 1 billion carries. Then these Carey guys would be just monsters. But because they just have so many dudes, you never know who to contain, and the stat line really doesn't tell you anything. I mean, you don't know how good they are, but they are loaded. Kind of a fun little fact: their school district up there recently decommissioned all of their district-owned coach buses. And for football teams, you need those coach buses because you got so many dudes and the equipment that you need to carry. Yellow Dogs just don't cut it. So that put Carey in a little bit of position. So they've been sending their team on, the Yellow Dogs, but the team and the staff and the gear won't even come close to fitting on a yellow bus. They've got 33 players on the roster, all the gear, the coaching staff. So they've been putting the gear and the support staff along with 2 coaches on a short bus to accompany the team to the game. And last week, their head coach drove the short bus to the game, and so they're driving these school buses, one bringing the gear, one doing this, and they're just scattered all over the place. And so they kind of get a chuckle out of that. But they've got Camas coming up, and I think the last 5 times they've played Camas, it's been in the rain. And so guess what? Weather forecast for Friday calls for rain. This might be number 6.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
Carey really has only had 1 close game this year, and that was the game with North Gem. They won 54-34, and even then, I mean, they still won by 20 points. But we'll find out when they wrap up the season in back-to-back weeks with Castleford and Dietrich. Those will be good measuring sticks. Castleford continues to impress as well. 38-0 shutout win over Camas, and they're 6-0 and 3-0 in the league.
Yeah, I mean, again, another strong performance. Eric Taylor at quarterback, 14-23, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Also 7 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. So on the year, Taylor has thrown for over 1,200 yards with 17 touchdowns. And so Castleford, they've got some weapons. Ethan Rowland, a receiver, 7 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he's got over 550 yards receiving on the year and 9 scores. And he also has 438 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So this is a Castleford team that doesn't have to show up and outscore you. They can show up and they can play a little bit of defense too. I mean, it's super hard to shut anybody out at that level of football. You just can't do it, unless the other team is just really not that good. But to hold a team, 20 points, whatever, somewhere in there, that is totally fine. And Castleford is definitely, I think, has a defense to complement their offense. So, good things happening over in Castleford.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them here over the final couple games and circle it next week. That matchup with Cary, that's going to be must see. I know we're trying to get that onto the broadcast schedule on IdahoSports.com, and what a fantastic game that would be.
Yep,
sure.
They asked, Cary asked if we were coming.
Yep. So we're definitely working on it, and of course it's already on our schedule, that Cary Dietrich game in the final week as well. So you might be seeing a lot of the Cary Panthers on IdahoSports.com. Not just regular season, but probably for another deep postseason run as well. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, speaking of the postseason, I know you got a game to go get ready for, so we'll cut you loose as the Dodgers get ready for their National League wild card. By the time you're listening to this, you'll know whether Scott showed up for work tomorrow or not.
Exactly. Next time I'll come on and I'll just be distraught, and I won't even be worth the effort to even do a podcast.
Right. Well, I have to, I'm wearing this shirt. It looks kind of pink on the screen, but it's a Red Sox shirt because I'm a Red Sox fan. So had to represent after that.
Yeah. Remember that time your team played my team in the World Series and cheated?
Well, to be fair, they cheated through the regular season. Once they got to the playoffs, the video room was under lock and key. They couldn't get in there.
I just got to give you some credit, my friend.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right?
Well, that's true. Just ask the Astros. We're mad at them too, because that was back-to-back years, by the way.
Yeah, that's a common enemy of just about everybody in baseball. So
yeah, true.
All right. Okay, well, thanks for listening / watching this edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Bainey. We'll see you back here next week on IdahoSports.com.